Do yourself a favor. Mark in your calendar October 27th. You may ask why? Yeah, of course, I'll tell you why. Because then this album will officially be released and in stores. Now, why is that important, you may ask? That's a very good question. I will tell you why in a moment. But first, I have a few other albums I want to share with you as well. Let's be honest, stranger things have happened. But then again, a brand new video on the Live Prog YouTube channel, 9 years after I quit, that's close to a miracle. I have to give credit to Gentle Art of Music, because they kept sending me promos, and I'll be honest, I didn't keep all of them, but when they sent me this one, I was intrigued, I was curious, I saw the cover, I thought crime scene, so I gave it a spin. The opener, Victim of Desire, they captured me immediately. I was kind of, you heard the guitar, you heard the melody, the overall melody in the song, and then of course Yogi Lang's vocals. I've always loved the sound of RPWL. I think Yogi is a great singer, so that's why I got curious and kept on listening to the album, and I found myself really enjoying it. It's a fairly short album, 45 minutes, 6 tracks. And crime scene, and especially if you see the cover, it gives out a little bit of this kind of dark vibe, dark atmosphere on the album, a dark theme, so you will. But when I listen to the album, I don't really find it actually a very dark sounding album. It's pretty much an RPWL album, and I don't mean that negatively. I mean that in a good way. That's the kind of sound I like, and they really managed to capture me and kept me listening to this album. And I think, well, that shows that it's a very good album. And as I said, I got curious to it, and curiosity is a very good, well, how do you say that, feature to have. It's first time in 9 years I'm doing an English video, so I have to find some words somewhere. They're out there somewhere, but I'll find them. Curiosity is a good thing. Curiosity brought me back to the prog world by a couple of albums, listening to them. Curiosity brought me to the comic book world. Curiosity will help you find new things. Now, I only got this promo copy, so I don't have anything else to go on. I don't have lyrics, I don't have more details. But then again, this is not a review, so I just wanted to share this with you. And the album is out for a while, so maybe you've already heard it, maybe you already have it. If you have it, that's good, of course. But if you don't have it, if you missed it by any chance, then I can say it is out there and it's very good. So definitely listen to it, because the music is very beautiful. That's enough what I'm going to say about this one, because I have a few more, as you noticed. And the next album is another promo they sent me, is La Muerta from Subsignal. The short opening track, 271 Days, instrumental track, kinda surprised me, because they put in this nice little hint of classic old Genesis, and I really like that. But when the title track starts, La Muerta, and the guitar comes in, I am sold. And with that, I have to be honest, I really love the sound of Subsignal. I love their sound ever since I heard their album Touchstones, which was for me the first album I heard from them. Of course, I also heard their actual first album, but I've always liked their sound, and that is another reason, like I said before, why this is not a review, because I'm biased, I love this band very much. And I put this album on, and I revisited the album, because I played it when I got it as a promo, but I revisited it later on, and I found that I wanted to play it again when it was finished. So that means it's a good album, when the album is done and you really want to listen to it again. That's the best trait for a good album. So this is a great album. That's what I like. Now, it's been out for a while. It's been released in 2018. So you can imagine I have this promo for a couple of years already. And yeah, I still love to listen to it. So I'm not going to mention a lot more about the album. There's one track I do want to mention specifically, and that's the last track of the album, Some Kind of Drowning, where there's a duet with Mariana Semkina, the singer of I Am the Morning. And what I like about it is that when you listen to La Muerta, it's a really, great prog album. It's catchy, it's melodic, everything you want in a good album is there. And then you get that last track, and they kind of change the sound a little bit. It goes more into a kind of melancholic sound. It's with nice piano and everything, and then you have that duet between Arno and Mariana, and wow, that's really great. It's a really touching song. Now, of course, these albums I showed you, they're out for a while, and some even for a longer while. But more recently, I got another envelope from Gentle Art of Music, and my first response was like, oh man, it's been 9 years and they're still sending me stuff. What's going on here? But then I opened the envelope and I found these 2 albums. Now, of course, you can understand the first one I put in my player was Subsignal. I found that it's kind of hard after 9 years going back to making a video about music, and I really was struggling with the words. And I found while I was editing that, you know, the part I recorded about this beautiful album, A Poetry of Rain by Subsignal, did not do justice to the album. So I decided to redo that part, to reshoot it right here while I'm editing. Well, I'm not editing right now, of course, but you know what I mean. Because, you know, it's been 5 years since their last album. Well, the world changed a lot. And now we have this really amazing album here, and it's even out on vinyl, on beautiful vinyl, which is very cool. Of course, I have this cardboard promo here, but it doesn't matter because the music is the same, and the music, that's what counts. And I found there are 2 words kind of important or kind of key to describe in general the music of Subsignal, which is, first of all, is melodious. It's really melodious music, and that's why I love to listen to it so much, with some heavy touches in it, but it's always the melody that, you know, attracts you to the music. But the second thing I find equally important, and that is emotion. There's a lot of emotion in the music. When you put it on, you hear it in the voice of Arno Menses, you hear it in the music, in the arrangements. That's really amazing. And what I said before, and what I like very much, is that Subsignal has a kind of sound. When you hear their music, you can hear that this is music by Subsignal. And yet every album is slightly different because the band likes to put in all kinds of different influences in their music. And also, when I was listening to A Poetry of Rain, I also heard some influences here and there. So even a surprising influence in the second track, The Art of Giving In. I'm not going to say what it is. You have to be curious, you know. I want to make you curious. So do you think, okay, I gotta go and listen to this album? And you really should, because it is really beautiful. The way Arno sings, the whole melodies, the guitar parts, the keys, the drums, the bass. There's something I need to say about the bass, because Ralf Schwager has been the bass player of Subsignal for many years, but unfortunately he decided for personal reasons, well, to leave the band. His replacement is Martijn Horsten, another Dutchman, the second Dutchman in the band. And of course, knowing that, I kind of paid a little extra attention to the bass parts on the album, and yes, they are very tasty. So again, you know, a lot of great songs on this album. Yeah, here I am stuck again with words about how to describe this beautiful music. So do yourself a favor, listen to the album, and when you're done listening to it, you'll probably have the same reaction I had, and you just press play again and you listen to the album again, because it is simply very beautiful. This album is that good. How good, you ask? Well, it brought me back 9 years after I stopped to do a video on Live Prog channel about this album. Okay, I also included a couple of other, you know, promos that I received, you know, to make it a more interesting video, hopefully, and ramble on a little bit about these other albums. But this is the main reason why I'm doing this video. I'm not getting out of retirement or something, but I just wanted to do it, you know. I felt like it. It felt good, and that's how good this album is. And again, that's why October 27th is so important, because then this album will be released. Who made this album? Well, I'll show you guys. These 2 gents are responsible for this band. I hope it's a band, I hope it's not a project. Volker Sol and Johnny Beck, keyboard player and the guitar player of Sylvan. Yeah, and there's a little bit more Sylvan involved in this album because there are two vocalists on the album, and one of them is Marco Gluman, the vocalist of Sylvan. So you might kind of wonder, you know, isn't this going to be like a sort of clone of Sylvan, you know, generally in the same kind of sound that they're making? Fortunately not. Violent Jasper really brings their own identity, their own musical identity on this album, really separate from the sound you know from the band Sylvan. That is something I find very good. I'm very happy with that. Violent, like I said, Violent Jasper, I didn't find anything violent on it. Again, just like with the RPWL album, it kind of has a bit of a dark theme on it, but there's I don't know, it's the expectation you get. I find it a very interesting theme because this time I do have a booklet with lyrics and everything in it. I'll show you in a bit. But when you start the first track, Control, which is the title track of the album, you are met with this touching piano. This really fragile touching piano, and that's when I thought, you know, why is this called Violent Jasper? Because there's no violence in there. There's a lot of emotion in it. There's a lot of, okay, there are hints of violence and despair in the haunting guitars and the drums you hear in the track. And next to those contrasting instruments, you have these fragile vocals from singer Caroline von Brunken. That's the second vocalist on the album. And halfway through the song, Marco comes in, and you know, oh man, that really gives me chills. When you hear these two sing together on that song, that really gives me chills. All throughout the album, the haunting and the fragile alternate, complement, and bring out this real amazing beauty in their music. And as the album and the title track says, Control, it's an album that deals with control over your emotions, with control over your life. The first line of the second track, Breathe, that really says it all.
Feel so numb, but I feel so cold. I'm slowly going down, losing all control.
Interestingly, this song has a more upbeat sound to it, but you know, I think everyone can relate to this, and that goes for most of the themes you find on this album. I think everyone has had moments when they felt lost, they felt that they are powerless to do something about what's happening around them or to someone else even, you know, all these kinds of emotions. And Volker and Johnny managed to capture those emotions so well on this album, and I really, wow, I really think I played this album a dozen times at least, or maybe even 24 times. I lost count of how many times I played this album, and I gotta say I'm really happy that I had this album so long in advance to be able to listen to it for so many times, because I am so impressed by the beauty, by the fragility of the music. But then again, you know, the contrast that you have with the keys and the guitars, with the drums, that create this amazing sound that evokes emotion in you when you listen to it. You know, I mentioned the drums a couple of times because the drums are there, you hear them, they bring a really powerful backbone to the songs, but they don't dominate. And nothing really dominates, it's all in nice harmony. Also the vocals by Caroline and Marco, they complement each other also so well and so beautiful. And yeah, well, I got a little emotional from the album when listening to it. I really did. And then you have these guitar solos. Sometimes I think guitar solos are kind of obligatory. You know, you really have to have a guitar solo in a song. But every time I hear a good guitar solo, it's like, oh man, this is a moment to close your eyes and just go up in the moment and listen to it. That's what I get when I have a good guitar solo. And there are some amazing guitar solos by Johnny Beck on this album. So this is truly a must-have album. And that's why it's so important to mark October 27th in your calendar. Because when this album hits the stores, do yourself a favor and grab a copy. You will not be disappointed. I am really happy that the label sent me a copy, because after only 2 spins, I decided I have to make a video about this, even though 9 years ago I stopped doing video reviews. Then again, this is of course not a review, this is me more rambling about this great music and how much I love it and how much I think you're gonna love it just as much. This album really touched me, and I really hope that this is only the beginning of what we'll see of Violent Jasper, that there will be more, because this debut, for me, it's very impressive. Very impressive in the sense that, you know, I'm moving in a direction I had not expected to go to. So that shows how powerful this album is. And yeah, I really hope there will be more. Like I said, make sure you get a copy of this album, but also make sure you get a copy of this album, A Poetry of Rain by Subsignal and Control by Violent Jasper, because they are two extraordinary albums, amazing albums that will give you a lot of musical joy. I gotta give you a little warning with these albums. It's not on the album itself, so I'll give it to you. Beware that you may find that once you start listening to these albums, you will be unable to stop listening to them, because these albums are that good.